This is the number one mistake that people make when starting as a graphic designer. Like, by far, it's the one that everybody should be doing, but not enough people are. And that is, what is up, everybody? It's your boy. And today, we're going to be talking about some mistakes that you're probably making as a beginner graphic designer. Now, these are going to be some things that I have made mistakes on in the past, which I know pretty much every beginner is probably making the same mistakes. So we're going to go over 5 ways that you can prevent making these same mistakes. So if you like this style of content, make sure to drop a like below, but we're going to jump right into it. So let's go. All right, so mistake number 5 that people make when they're starting off as a graphic designer is only learning one program or like one graphic editing program. Now, I know this may not make a lot of sense because you might be saying, hey Daniel, I already know how to use Photoshop. Why should I learn how to do anything else? I don't know why you sound like a Muppet, but the answer is because Photoshop or whatever you're using, maybe it's Affinity Designer or maybe it's GIMP, those can't do everything. And what I mean by when I say everything is when you're dealing with graphic design, working with clients, for the most part, one of the things that you need to make sure that you can do is you need to make sure that your designs are versatile. And by versatile, I mean able to be either shrunk down to a small format or blown up to the size of a canvas or a banner that might be on the side of a building. Now, while Photoshop is great for making good designs, and it definitely can be, the one that I would actually recommend using for something like if you're doing logo design or if you're doing any sort of intricate designs that is not text-based, I would probably recommend using something more along the lines of like Adobe Illustrator. Now, the difference is Photoshop is a raster-based program, which is primarily based on pixels. Now, Adobe Illustrator is a vector-based program, which actually calculates the shapes with math, which I don't even know how it works, so I'm not even gonna go into it. But essentially, the difference is Adobe Illustrator, or whatever your program of choice for vector designs, whatever you go with, that is going to make it so whatever design you create is fully scalable up to any size. So whether you're putting it in a 500 by 500 little tiny box, or you're putting it on the side of a building, you'll be able to successfully scale up or down your image without losing any quality, where you can't really do that with raster-based programs. I mean, things like text or basic shapes can be scaled up and down, but if you're doing anything that is more intricate with a lot of colors or line work, anything like that, those are probably not going to be able to be scaled up and down as easily as you might hope they can be. So always learn any vector program and any raster-based photo editing program will suffice and will do just the job. All right, now number 4 is going to be the mistake of undercharging for your work. Now, this one is going to lead us into the next couple tips or the next couple pieces of gold nuggets of wisdom. Now, what I mean by undercharging for your work is, let's say you are a logo designer and you design a logo or you have a client that wants a logo design for their business. Now they come up to you and you don't have a lot of experience doing graphic design, but you've done some, like you know your way around a program like Photoshop or Illustrator, and you can throw something together. But when they actually come up to you and they say, what is the price? You tell them $40. Now I know what you might be thinking, but Daniel, $40 sounds like a great deal for a logo, now doesn't it? The answer is no, it is not a great deal for a logo, because $40 has no value attached to it, especially if you're working with a business professional. I mean, maybe $40 for something like a small startup company where it's one employee, that might be okay. But if you're working with a company that has a clientele base already established and you tell them $40 for a logo, they're gonna look at you and go, something's not right about this guy. Something's not right about this price. Like, what I'm going to be getting for $40 is not going to be worth my $40. Like, they're expecting something terrible. Now, to put into, I guess, kind of perspective, imagine if you went to a store, like an Apple store, And at the Apple store, they sold iPhones, and they have their normal price iPhones at like, like what, $1,000 plus. That's what you would expect to buy an iPhone for. But let's say you're on your way out and some guy comes up to you and says, hey man, I got an iPhone I could sell you for $400, and it's the same one you're gonna buy in the store. Immediately, your brain is gonna go, something's not right about this if I'm only paying $400 for it as opposed to $1,000, which is what I should be paying for it. Your brain will automatically see that there's got to be some trade-off. Somebody's not going to buy a phone for $1,000 and then sell it to you for $400. There's going to be somewhere that something is getting cut out, some quality or some aspect is getting like drastically reduced in order to get the pricing to that point. Now, the same thing applies to graphic design. If you're not charging enough money, then you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So it kind of ties in with confidence. You have to be confident in your work as an artist to be able to tell somebody with confidence, $120 for your logo, $140, $300. When you get very, very good and you have an established portfolio, $1,000 for your art. Like, being an artist, you name the price, and the value of that art is based on your confidence and how much they like the art, which that's also going to lead into our next mistake that people will make. Now, the next mistake that people make as a graphic designer is going to be charging for you charge for the product instead of charging for your time. Now, what I mean by that is, again, you might be thinking to yourself, well, they're paying for the logo, so shouldn't they be paid or charged for the product? Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, if you're making art is always subjective. And that means that while you might think something looks amazing, somebody else might not. But that doesn't really detract from the factor that you already put time into creating that work for them that they had requested. So what I mean by you should be charging for your time is, I don't mean like tell them $40 and then be like, oh yeah, based on the time I spend on it, I can charge you anywhere up to $300 extra and you have to pay it. No, don't do that. What you should do is incorporate the cost of your expected time of completion into the upfront cost that they'll be paying. So let's say they tell you, I want this logo designed, or this, let's say a brochure, because brochures can take a while. So let's say this company says, I want a brochure created for my company. It's going to be a trifold brochure, and I need a graphic on the front and the back with lots of text, lots of edited images, like all these different components that go into creating a trifold brochure. Now, a trifold brochure, depending on how nice you're making it, can take anywhere from like 6 up to 15 hours to create, depending on how intricate they want it. Now, in this case, because you already in your mind know this is going to take a substantial amount of time in order to create it, don't tell them you're going to charge them $80 when you're going to spend 12 hours working on this. You should be incorporating the cost of your work and the time that you're going to be investing into creating this product into the initial cost. So instead, maybe you're going to say, I believe my time is worth, let's say, $22 an hour. So in that case, if you're estimating you're going to spend 10 hours on this project, then you should be multiplying that amount by the amount of hours. So 22 times 10 hours, $220. Now, that would be for the work itself. For the product, you could still charge whatever. So you could charge like 40, 60 bucks. It doesn't really matter at that point, because you're already making your money back for your hourly that you really are aiming for. Now, at this point, if you end up spending more time or less time on it, then that's kind of on you. Now, the other way you can do it, which I don't necessarily recommend because it kind of makes it a little untrustworthy, is doing what some people do, which is they charge a small upfront cost and then they log their hours using a specific application, which I'll post one on the screen somewhere over here or there. But logging your hours that you work. Now, this kind of relies on a lot of trust between you and your client. If you have an established relationship with them already and they've been working with you for a while, then sure, go ahead and do that, because at that point, they already know that you're going to be providing them a good, reliable product that they can use. But if you're starting with a new client, I wouldn't go this way. It's just going to make things more difficult. And on top of that, you just kind of might be screwing yourself out of money that you could be making anyways. So I would just stick with the first one if I were you guys. Now, my beginner mistake number 2 is going to be a pretty big one, and this really ties into a lot about your confidence as an artist. And I know from personal mistakes that I've done this myself, and that is asking your client for too much feedback. Now, feedback is good and bad as being an artist, because like I said in the other point I made, art is all subjective. So when somebody comes to you, like a client comes to you and they say, I want you to create this logo for me. A logo can be very ambiguous in that it's really left to the artist's interpretation of how we're going to go about this. Now, it is also up to the client. If they have something in their mind already, it's up to them to kind of let you know what they have as a vision for what you're going to create. Now, if they don't give you any outlines, they don't give you any specifications as to what they might want, then in that case, you're pretty much free to go ahead and run wild with your imagination and come up with a few different concepts to see whatever sticks for them or what they might like. Now, the reason why I say feedback is bad is because when you're a beginner graphic designer, you're going to want to ask for their opinion on your work, or you're going to want to ask, like, send over multiple renditions of whatever is being done. This is bad. Don't do that. The reason being is that, first of all, you're wasting time by having to ask them what they want. Second of all, sometimes they don't know what they want. Sometimes they might change their mind halfway through and decide that they like a whole different concept. And third of all, what they might have in mind after you've already started your design might completely conflict with what you've already been working on. Meaning that all the work that you've done up to that point is, to put it lightly, meaningless. So when it comes to asking for their opinions, it is good if they have something already in mind to ask them. But if they don't have anything in mind, then be the artist and come up with something completely original that is going to wow and amaze them. So then you won't have to worry about them changing their mind or them making any differences, because as the artist, you've already taken creative control, which is what we should be doing. We should be working to make their lives easier, not harder. Now, my last tip or mistake that you beginners are going to make, and this is the number one mistake that people make when starting as a graphic designer. Like, by far, it's the one that everybody should be doing, but not enough people are. And that is not using contracts. Like, why are you not using a contract? Like, I understand that when you're a beginner and you're just starting out, it's a little intimidating to want to ask people to sign something. But when we think about the real world and whenever we're going out and about and doing things like establishing a bank account or hiring somebody to like renovate your kitchen, what you always end up doing is you sign a contract first, because everybody wants to make sure that they're going to get paid. Now, at this point, it's really more so about making sure that you get paid, and it's almost like insurance for your business, because that's what it is. You're running a business, whether you're doing freelance work or you work for a design like company, you're in a business, so you need to make sure that you're covered. Now, there are going to be plenty of free versions of contracts you can get online. They will usually be a lot more vague because they're kind of covering for most different freelance like areas of graphic design. But so that is a good, like, you don't have an excuse to not have one. I mean, even if it's a free one and then you modify the text a little bit to match kind of what you're doing, then that's better than not having anything. I mean, ideally, what you'll want to do is either you'll want to have a lawyer draft one up for you, or you'll want to find a service that can specifically design a contract for your type of business that you're doing, because the more specific it is to you and what you're doing, the better you'll be covered in case something does go wrong. Now, let me paint a picture for you really quick of a scenario that happens in the real world that would kind of suck. So let's say you're a contractor and you work in construction, like you build houses and you do flooring. Now, let's say you get a client that wants you to come in and do all of their flooring, and you come in and you spend 15 hours working on their flooring to get it all done and all perfect the way that they want it. Now, at the end of your 15 hours, you go and you say, hey, take a look at this. I did a great job. Can I get paid? They take a look at the flooring and they go, I don't really like it, so I'm not going to pay you. Yeah, you would not be happy, because guess what? You just spent 15 hours creating this, like, flooring is art. It is, to a degree. So you just spent 15 hours creating this for them, and then now they decide that they don't want to pay you for it because they just don't really like the feeling of it. No, at that point, it's irrelevant whether they like it or not. You're getting paid for your time, not for the product and whether they like it or not. I mean, this also comes into play with your confidence as an artist. If you're not super confident in it, then there will be times when people will feel like they might be getting burned or taken advantage of. But that is besides the point. It's when we're an artist, you really have to put your best work forward every time. Like, you never know if the person you're creating this design for, if their business might become a like Fortune 500 company, and then now your logo is being used as this major corporation's logo. You really want to make sure that whatever you're putting in your best effort no matter what. Because if you don't, and you are burning people and having them sign contracts and then just sending them shit work, then guess what? Word spreads fast on the internet. Like, it won't take long before other people know that you are taking advantage of people and screwing them out of their hard-earned money. Because at the end of the day, we're working just as hard to make that money as they did to earn it for themselves. So in reality, you should always be using contracts and not using them to screw people. Use them for good. like superpowers. Gotta use them for... Get out of here, fly. You gotta use them for good, not for bad. Now, I'm telling you, please use a contract. I've had enough times already where I have done work for clients. I've spent 10, 15 hours working on a project, and then at the last minute, they decide that they just don't want to message me anymore, or they decide that they don't like the work, so they don't want to pay for it. And you really feel like you wasted your time and you've gotten taken advantage of, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, when it comes down to it, if you try to pursue anything legally with them, you're going to spend way more time and money trying to get $200, $300 out of somebody than you would actually just having drafted up a contract before you worked with them. So always use a contract. Just save yourself the headache, please. Now, those are my 5 mistakes that I made starting off as a graphic designer. If you made any of these same mistakes, or if you made any mistakes as a graphic designer, which I think everybody should have because we're all human, then go ahead and drop in the comments and let me know exactly what mistakes you have made and how you've kind of adjusted to not make those same mistakes anymore. If you did like this video, make sure to drop a like on it, subscribe if that's what you want to do, and hit the bell notification so you can see when I go live or when I post new content. Now, I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me, and I hope you have a terrific day, and so long. Peace. I don't know why I did that, but I did it anyways. Peace out!